This is the Talkin Bout the Hoosiers podcast, presented by HoosierIllustrated.com. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Talkin Bout the Hoosiers podcast, presented by HoosierIllustrated.com. I'm joined by Staley, I'm Drew Rosenberg, and we have an exciting podcast recapping EYBL's tournament in Indianapolis this week. Kyler, you were boots on the ground. A lot to talk about. How are you doing, Kyler?
I'm doing great. Like you said, boots on the ground. Hoosier Illustrated had a presence there. Exciting weekend, loaded weekend. It was the first live period weekend. So that means all the coaches can be out, all the Division I coaches. The star power was out there. We'll get deeper into that, throughout the podcast and everything. But I'm doing good. How are you doing, Drew? You're back in Boston, right?
Yeah, I'm back in Boston. Not Indiana. It's really hot today, but so I've been battling the heat. But other than that, I'm good.
Congratulations, first of all, to Drew for graduating from IU. So if you're listening, give him a little silent clap right now. So big graduate boy. But he's sticking around with us, right? He's sticking around with Hoosier Illustrated. Yep. So he's already got some good stuff. He's going to continue to build for us and everything. So we're excited to keep him.
Yeah, thanks, Kyler. It's weird. I'm washed up now, washed up alumni now. Now I get to now I'm not in the student section chair, and now I get to be the drunk alumni when I go to games as a fan, which not going to be too often because mostly going to be going for Hoosier Illustrated. But
yeah, hey, you're not washed up. Don't say that. You're not washed up until you get about my age. So okay. You're still good for a little bit. So don't stress there.
Kyler, if I look like you at your age, I'll feel great, man.
That's great. All the people listening here are going to be so confused, and all the people watching are going to be like, yeah, that makes sense. So
yeah. All right, we should probably jump into the basketball talk because I don't think people came to listen to us.
Let's do it.
Let's talk about all this. But yeah, so I mean, the first name I really wanted to bring up, someone Indiana fans are very familiar with, Jaylen Harrelson, who had a really good weekend. What kind of did you see from him?
Yeah, so Jalen Harelson, 5-star guard, went to Fishers for a couple of years, transferred to LaLu. So he's still in the state, just not a part of, the IHSAA when it comes to playing ball and everything. With this, he's at LaLu, which is a really, really good program, develops players very well. High level competition. I know that's a little controversial to say if you're an Indiana, resident, if you're a Hoosier or whatever. But the guys that he's playing against, it's very high level. Not to disrespect the state of Indiana when it comes to the high school kind of level and stuff. I mean, I cover high school basketball and everything, and I know how talented the state is. But Jalen Harelson with LaLu, he's actually running with Indy Heat, which he has been for a few years. He's running with Indy Heat at the EYBL level. Phenomenal weekend. He was probably one of the more bright spots out of any player, not just Indiana basketball targets that were there. Really put on a show. He recently cut his list to 9 schools, but the thing that I got out of it wasn't just the 9 schools that were watching him. It was the other schools like the Kentuckys. Kentucky was watching him and stuff. So when a player, cuts his list down to 9 schools, or however many schools, that doesn't mean that he's completely cutting off his recruitment. Other schools can certainly sweep in. And he can gain interest off of that. But, everybody was watching him. He's a high-level talent, about 6'6", 6'7" lead guard. He's a point guard with that size, which is already a major advantage. And he's probably one of the most unselfish players that I've ever watched. And I've been watching him for a few years. And he's a guy that he's got kind of a little bit of LeBron James in him. I know that's kind of crazy to say, but he's a guy that's going to facilitate. He's going to set up a play. He's a great passer, has a high IQ, really good court vision, but he's got the size, he's got the body where he can go get a bucket. That's what he can do, and he's really good about attacking the basket. That's just kind of what his game is. Shooting is still an area that he's still got to improve on a little bit. I saw him improve on it last summer. Still think that there's still an area that he needs to just continue to work on and everything, but, man, he's great. And IU, obviously, they've been on him since before he even played a single high school game. Him and Trent Sisley both. Those guys were always kind of compared with one another. They were always kind of intertwined in a way. Actually, Trent and Jalen played on the AAU Indy Heat for the past couple of years before Trent went over to Indiana Elite. So a lot of connections there. He's obviously been to Indiana multiple times, visited. He's always there for Hoosier hysteria, it seems like. So IU's still heavily involved with him. But this guy's going to have a lot of options. He's really, really good. I mean, you got Gonzaga, Duke, Auburn. Those schools are going after him. I think Kansas as well. So he's a program changer. He really is. And a team that can get him, they're going to get a really mature player, right off the bat, even as a freshman. So Jaylen Harrelson played really, really well. I'm trying to look up his stats to see what he averaged over the weekend. Let's see if I can pull that up. Averaged 26.6 points per game, 7.6 rebounds, and 2.6 assists a game. And then he even had one game, I think it was when their win over Vegas Elite, where he had 37 points and he was 11 of 14 shooting. I mean, that's just fantastic with anybody. So Jaylen Harelson, a big standout over the weekend, and obviously Indiana had a presence with him. Mike Woodson, Kenya Hunter, Yasir Roseman, they were all there and they watched him. So the recruitment's still pretty strong right there. So we'll just kind of see how it plays out. I think he's probably going to want to commit to a school before his senior year. So just kind of keep that on the radar if you're an Indiana fan, and just keeping track of that. So not much more you can say about Jaylen Harrelson. He's just a great player.
Yeah, and then you kind of talked about it, him being a program changer. Jaylen Harrelson is a guy that you mentioned it, he's been on the radar for Mike Woodson and his staff since before he started high school. It's a guy Woodson clearly has a lot of interest in. He's come to Indiana multiple times, probably will come again before his commitment's all said and done. So he'll be someone that's really interesting to follow, just because Mike Woodson has been there in this battle of his recruitment for so long.
Yeah, and also just to add on one thing, he's a great point guard. Mike Woodson loves his point guards, and he obviously takes pride in that. Yeah, exactly. So the big thing about it is too, there was reports going around where Jaylen Harrelson's actually been connected with Jalen Hood-Schifino quite a bit. He's been talking to him about his game because he sees a lot of his game in Jalen Hood-Schifino. So obviously you're going to see the development of what Mike Woodson did with Hood-Schifino. That's going to trickle down to any point guard, they're going to see that. So if Indiana is able to land Jaylen Harrelson, it's going to be a great pickup. We'll just kind of see what that's going to be like, the next couple of years down the road. But the recruitment's still very, very strong right now.
Yeah, that was the point I was kind of getting across with the big point guard. Kind of like Hood-Schifino, similar body types coming out. I think Harrelson might have an inch or two on Hood-Schifino where he was at this age, but similar body types, both have like that body that's ready for the college level, which you don't really see a lot in young guards. So someone who can come in and make an impact at the college level right away. And then another guy you kind of talked about, I wanted to bring up, you labeled him as the next superstar, Malik Thomas.
Shameless plug for my notebook there on HoosierIllustrated.com. But yeah, there's one guy. I mean, obviously when you're at EYBL, there's a lot of talent on the floor there, no matter what team or whatever. But when I watch Malik Thomas, 2025, 5-star, I think he's based out of New York, if I can remember correctly. He plays for, is it New Heights Lightning?
New Heights Lightning,
yeah. New Heights Lightning. So East Coast based guy, 6'4" combo guard, man, superstar. Like you said, he can do a lot on the floor. Really athletic player, really smooth. Can play on and off the ball at a high level, a very, very high level. But I thought he was at his best on the ball when I watched him. I watched him probably 3-4 times or so. The guy just has excellent court vision. He's kind of like Jaylen Harrelson in a way. He's a little bit more versatile than what Jaylen Harrelson is, just as far as his scoring and what he can do. But, man, he was making really sharp passes to his teammates. And he works really well off the ball as well. I mean, coming off ball screens and just creating on looks for himself. Was another thing that I was super impressed with. And on the ball, if he's looking to score, he's got a quick first step, really quick first step. Can take a defender, out of his shoes, and he can just go straight to the lane. Because just with his speed and his athleticism, he's got a really athletic build to him, which that helps a lot. And the big thing I love about him too, and it's not going to show up in the stat sheets, but the dude's a communicator, talking, verbally leading his team, always talking on the defensive end, which at that kind of, environment, you don't see a whole lot of that where they're communicating on defense. It's more of like a, I guess at the EYBL level or even at, any AAU level, it's a lot of do me type of ball. And that's how I'm going to play or whatever. But no, he's a team player, man. communicate on defense. Even when he was out of the game, I watched him on the bench. He was standing up. He was almost like a second coach in a way. But, man, he's going to be a superstar. You pretty much had every single school watching him. I don't think he's cut his list down or anything, so the recruitment's still wide open with him. But, there you had a lot of the East Coast-based schools. You had Rutgers, UConn. UConn was very heavily involved there. Watching him wise, Dan Hurley was there as well. But you also had Mike Woodson. You had Kenya Hunter. You had Yashir Roseman. Those guys watching. They do have a little bit of an East Coast kind of reach there. Mike Woodson obviously with the New York Knicks for a long time. Yeah. Kenya Hunter's got ties there. But yeah, he was really impressive, man. Really, really impressive guy. I don't know if Indiana, they have a chance. I don't know how strong of a chance that's going to be with him. They'd have to really do some work on that recruitment. To me, when I look at Malik Thomas, and this is just my personal opinion, he seems like a UConn type of player. That's kind of where I see him ending up as, and he's a guy that would fit well in UConn's system. But the recruitment's not out of the question yet. He's still a guy. I think he wants to. I think there was a report that came out not too long ago. I think he still wants to try to do another visit with Indiana. He's already visited Indiana once. That would be that would be big. If you get him on campus a second time, that's big right there. That's big with any recruitment. So Malik Thomas, my opinion, he's the next superstar. When he goes into college in the next couple of years, people are going to be so impressed with him, and he's going to be one of the best players in college basketball when he eventually enters that level.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of mentioned, you pretty much said it all. All you can say about Malik Thomas. I mean, there's a reason he has that 5-star label next to his name. I mean, the talent is there, and it's whatever coach is lucky enough to land him is going to get that instant impact. Like we're going to see. I think we'll see it from both him and Harrelson, those two combo guards you call them, but they're both so good on the ball.
Yep.
That they're going to have the chance to do something really special early on in their college career. But some guys I guess maybe not their college careers, because one of them didn't have a college career. The other had a very short college career, but happened to, win a national title in his 1 year. You saw some NBA legends watching their sons play. LeBron James, a lot of people consider the GOAT, not going to go into that, but also one of the greatest scorers of all time, at least one of the greatest scorers of my generation, Carmelo Anthony. What was it like, I guess, seeing them and then watching them watch their kids as Cayen Anthony and Indiana Target was playing, and then Bryce James, Bron's youngest son.
Yeah, not to brag or anything, but me and LeBron pretty much best friends. We were hanging out all weekend and everything. And now I'm just playing, but no, it's pretty surreal. There was a little bit of rumblings when I got there. Had no idea that he was going to be there. I got there, people were talking like I had totally forgotten, if I'm being completely honest here, I had totally forgotten about the Strive for Greatness team. Just hadn't crossed my mind because there's no Indiana targets on there. When I go to EYBL and stuff, other than like the local teams like Indy Heat and all that, like my focus was on the Indiana basketball targets. I want to see what they're doing and blah 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 with that. But I forget what game it was. I think it was Strive for Greatness versus Malik Thomas, I think, on Friday night. And he comes in. There was a little bit of rum. He's like, I think LeBron's going to be here, blah, blah, blah. You look over, you see a bunch of security guards like over by this door or whatever. And the security guards keep opening the door, looking, peeking or whatever. With about 5 minutes left in the warm-up session, LeBron James' wife comes in. And then right as soon as warm-up's in, LeBron James walks in, and, the crowd, they just circling that court and everything. They want to see it or whatever. But it's pretty surreal. And then so you got LeBron James there. You got Carmelo Anthony with Cayen Anthony, which we'll talk about here in a little bit as well. But you got Cayen Anthony, who Indiana's recruiting. So Carmelo's really good. I know a lot of the EYBL tournaments. He plays for Team Melo, which is Carmelo's team, obviously. So plays for there. I think Carmelo does a really good job of always going to Cayen's games. I always feel like he's there, supportive dad. He's awesome, there, and he's coaching the team up from the side or whatever. So that's pretty cool to watch and everything. But no, it was you got all these Division I coaches. You got the high level of Division I coaches. You got Mike Woodson, Bill Self, John Calipari, and then you throw in these NBA legends like LeBron James, Carmelo Anthony, and not even including John Wall was there as well. And then you've got Lance Stevenson there as well. And then out of blue, you got Indianapolis Colts quarterback Anthony Richardson, who was just there to watch some ball. So definitely a star-studded event. But that's just what EYBL does, man. I mean, you've got the best of the best players in this circuit. People want to go there. Nike's got a big label. They've got a big presence when it comes to, just everything in the world. So that was the cool part about EYBL this weekend. You got to love it. If you're there, and I highly recommend if anybody that's listening here that has an EYBL event come locally to their town or something like that, buy tickets to go watch. You're a basketball fan, go buy tickets to watch. You're seeing some of the best athletes, and you never know who's going to show up, like LeBron James. So pretty cool experience. It was pretty surreal to see him.
Yeah, before we move on more to Cayen Anthony as a player and his, recruitment with Indiana, I noticed you didn't mention Tom Izzo's name. Kyle, you posted a picture of Tom Izzo, no recognition of the Michigan State coach, legendary college basketball Hall of Fame coach. Kyle, do you know who Tom Izzo is?
I do know who Tom Izzo is, okay. And I would like to formally apologize if he's listening, which we all know that he probably is listening to this podcast. So I'd like to formally apologize to Coach Izzo. Obviously, when I do my tweets or whatever, I like to say who's all watching who or whatever. I took a picture of Tom Izzo, mentioned everybody but Michigan State and Tom Izzo. And I don't know what I was thinking. I really don't. Tom Izzo's just there. So, Coach Izzo, I'd like to apologize to you if this gets to you. So I will give you recognition the next time I see you out.
I'm sure Tom Izzo is an avid listener of our podcast, Kyler, so I'm sure he
talking about the Hoosier podcast.
Yeah. But moving back to Cayen Anthony, I mean, it seemed like he's the guy, the connections to IU, Mike Woodson. It's very clear. Mike Woodson coached Melo when Carmelo Anthony played in New York. Melo has said Woodson was one of his favorite coaches he's played for in the past. Really seems like the connections there. What kind of are you hearing or seeing with his recruitment?
Yeah, so when Cayen entered the high school level and Mike Woodson obviously took over as Indiana head coach, it was kind of a foregone conclusion that he was always going to be, no matter what kind of player he turned out to be, he was always going to kind of be on that radar just because of the connections you talked about. Mike Woodson coached Carmelo with the New York Knicks. Carmelo's came out. We all know the story about when Trace Jackson Davis was thinking about leaving Indiana. Carmelo had reached out and said, hey, Mike Woodson's the best coach I've ever played for. You need to trust him, blah, 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 and stuff. So Cayen Anthony, he's a rising star. He really is at the high school level right now. He's a guy that when you look at the rankings, he's just getting better and better and better, and he's got a lot of Carmelo in him. He really does. He's not the biggest guard in the world. He's growing. I think he's around maybe 6'4" or something.
6'5" on 247.
So obviously that's a pretty tall for the guard size, but he's still got to, get that bulk in him and stuff. Yeah. Carmelo, obviously a very big forward, can do a lot on the floor and everything. But the recruitment of Kiyan Anthony for Indiana, it seems that it is picking up because a lot of times when you're at these live periods, a lot of times the coaches will split up a little bit. Just to watch multiple prospects, you've got, and I'm talking about when it comes to the head coach and assistant coaches. But in the day that Mike Woodson was there, Mike Woodson, Kenya Hunter, Yasir Roseman, we're all watching Kiyan. So that kind of shows you that, hey, he's a priority or he's about to become a priority. And they all watched him. The cool thing about it was that Carmelo was pretty much sitting right next to Mike Woodson, not the whole time, not during the game, but got to see Mike Woodson and Carmelo interact after the game. So that's always really cool to see. That's a special moment with that. So, but Kiyan, he's got a lot of potential. Jumper still a little iffy for me. We all know how good of a shooter Carmelo was and how he can create on the ball, and that mid-range game was great. But he's a high IQ player, Kiyan is. Pretty athletic player. He loves to draw contact. He will go at the defense, draw contact, and he'll get to the line. That's what he does. Takes his defender off the ball, 1v1 really, really well. Just a lot of potential. Super athletic player and everything. He's a 4-star player. I don't know exactly what he's ranked right now with 24/7 Sports or Rivals or whatever, but dude's got a lot of potential. He averaged 22.3 points a game this past weekend in 4 games. So, and then one of the coolest things was going back to the LeBron Carmelo thing. The last game that I saw, for the weekend was actually Team Melo versus Strive for Greatness, and you got to see the next generation of LeBron James and Carmelo Anthony going at each other. And obviously LeBron and Carmelo have really good ties, really good friends, both in the same NBA draft class and whatnot. But Cayen Anthony is a guy you need to watch out for. I think the recruitment of that's going to start picking up. I think he also is planning on taking a visit to Indiana pretty soon, probably at the end of the summer or so. I think he's focusing on AAU right now. And then, come fall, he's probably going to be on campus. I mean, that's probably a given at this point, unless for some reason Cayen just decides he doesn't want to go to Indiana. It's probably going to be a given at this point. You got the connections with Carmelo. I'm sure Melo's going to take any opportunity to go see Mike Woodson and interact with him for a weekend. It's just someone you got to watch out for. A lot of potential in Cayen Anthony. So I'm personally really excited to see how his recruitment starts to develop right now, because I think he's going to be a guy that's going to just continue to get more and more better offers.
Yeah, I believe he confirmed to, I think it was Pigs, that he would be taking a visit to Indiana in the near future. So good to see Woodson kind of continuing to build. And the biggest complaint with Woodson was he lost this whole freshman class, losing Lee McNeely, but was able to recover with Bryson Tucker. Now you see it, Woodson is really putting in the work right now to make sure he doesn't have a situation where he has no 2025 class that late. So it's good to see if you're an Indiana basketball fan. But some other guys that stood out to you, I can't speak English right now, Kyler, but so that's what I'm going to throw it to you. Darius Acuff, Trey McKinney, you talked about that backcourt pretty extensively in your notebook.
Yeah. I think I saw the best backcourt in EYBL. I'm going to be honest with you. When you got 2 5-stars in both Trey McKinney and Darius Acuff, both guys that are Indiana targets right now, they play for the family. Man, they can do a lot on the floor. They play so well off of one another. Darius Acuff, more of a athletic on-ball guard that will facilitate the things that he'll kind of get the offense going. And then Trey McKinney works extremely well off the ball. He can play the wing. He can attack. He can do a whole lot of things on the ball. Really physical. He's got a bulldog build to him. A lot of times you even saw a lot of pick and pop game with him as well, with him and Darius Acuff. But 2 talented players. They're both on Indiana's radar. Right now, I don't know what chance Indiana has with them right now. I think they're both based out of Michigan. I know the family's based out of Michigan. I don't know if Darius Acuff's based out of Michigan or not. I know Trey McKinney is.
I think Acuff is Florida.
Florida. Okay. So I know John Calipari is recruiting Darius Acuff pretty hard right now. So Trey McKinney, I could probably see him staying in Michigan. Just my personal opinion, either Michigan State or Michigan. Obviously, Dusty May coming in, that's going to be pretty enticing as well. And then Tom Izzo, even though I ducked him in the tweet or whatever, we all know how great of a coach he is and great recruiter. So those are 2 guys, obviously, to keep on the radar as well. A couple other guys that I saw, just to kind of round this out, talking about the EYBL targets, I saw Darius Adams as well. That's a guy that Indiana's obviously been recruiting. He plays at La Lu. He plays with Jalen Harelson. Was recently a part of when that whole coaching staff did that cross-state visit. He was a guy that they went and visited as well. Sharpshooter, great off the ball. Just a guy, just a sniper, man. That's what he does. He just goes on the floor. He goes on the floor, gets a free look, and that dude can just get a bucket from 15 foot and out. So obviously saw him and whatnot. He's a guy that would obviously come in a little undersized right now, but he would come in and just be a shooter. That's just what he does. So a lot of it was a little weird this year. Ain't gonna lie, a lot of Indiana targets, but not as many as what we've seen over the past few years. Just because of the transfer portal, Indiana had to really focus on that and try to fill the gaps that they needed to. So when it comes to the EYBL, they're not looking at, they're obviously recruiting high school level. They're obviously we need to, build that relationship and stuff, but not many players on the radar here. So it's going to be interesting to see in these next couple of years when the transfer portal starts becoming, it's already a legit thing, but already starts to be set in stone. What schools are going to focus more on transfer portal? What schools are going to focus more on high school? It'll just kind of see what Indiana's going to do. I think right now they've got a pretty happy medium right now when it comes to that. So this is a great weekend. It was a great weekend. Looking forward to another EYBL session. The live periods are starting to ramp up this summer. So we'll see what the IU staff is all about, in these next coming months.
Yeah, you mentioned, I guess, the balance of high school versus portal. I know it's a different sport, but Kurt Signetti in his interview came out a couple of days ago. I'll have something about that on the site pretty soon. He had a good quote, I think, about it, talking about how still need those high school guys to build the program, but finding the portal, it's about filling immediate needs. And it's finding that balance between filling those immediate needs and getting those guys, because you're not going to get a portal guy to sit in the bench. You're getting him to play right away. So it's kind of finding that balance for his freshmen, recruiting high school kids. You're trying to build up that class.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, there's going to be times where you recruit a freshman that's expecting to play a lot more than what he does. Yeah. And then sits the bench, and obviously he's going to enter the portal and stuff. But you got to still get those guys. You still got to get those guys, those program builders. One guy I think we're getting ready to talk about, a guy that's a program builder, Braylon Mullins. That's a guy that you could bring in right away. He's maybe not going to play right away. Who knows, depending on the system, depending on what a team has around him or whatever. But he's the type of guy that you would need with that. So got to keep continue. You got to recruit the high school level, and you got to recruit the transfer portal. If you can find a good balance with that, and you're a high major college program, I think you'll do really, really well.
Yeah, and you mentioned it. They're not the same amount as usual Indiana targets playing in the EYBL circuit as you've seen. But you talked about it, Braylon Mullins. He's the guy playing in the Adidas circuit. Trent Sicily also in the Adidas circuit with, I believe, Indiana Elite?
Yep, him and those two and Malachi Moreno, another Indiana target. So pretty loaded Indiana Elite team. But
is there anyone having a better spring right now than Braylon Mullins?
No. I mean, I'm going to be dead honest with you. No, there's not. You want to talk about a guy that just is rising. That is Braylon Mullins, 2025 4-star guard, based out of Indiana, goes to Greenfield Central High School. Man, Indiana's he's obviously been an Indiana target. I think by this time people know how big of importance he is to Indiana right now as far as his recruitment. But man, that dude has went off every single game. I don't think he's had a game that he's scored in single digits at all. I'd have to go back and look at the stats, but man, the dude's just balling out. That's what he's doing right now in spring. I mean, that Indiana Elite team, pretty stacked, pretty loaded group. We mentioned Sicily, Malachi, Moreno, Mullins, and you got a guy named Mark Zachary, who's a two-sport athlete, one of the highest rated football prospects out there. You've got Desmond Briscoe, who's really, really good as well, big center. And then you've got a bunch of other key pieces with that. But Braylon Mullins is taking his game to a whole nother level. It's awesome to see because I've seen him since he's even started his freshman year, just to where he's grown as a player. He's gotten a lot better shooting. He's gotten a lot more athletic. Shooting was always kind of his bread and butter, in my opinion. But his athleticism is just taken off to a whole nother level. He's a guy, when you're out there and some other teams warming up, you're like looking, I was like, okay, this guy's just going to be a shooter. But, dude, that guy will take you off the dribble. He will go to the basket, and he will put you on a poster. I think I have a few highlights on our YouTube page of him. I mean, that guy can dunk. He can do a whole lot of things, and he's long, really athletic player. But, man, he's really taken off. He's taken off so much that you've got schools like UConn, Kansas, UNC. Those schools just offered. What's crazy to me, Purdue just offered. And I don't know where Purdue's been with him because he seems like a prototypical guy that Matt Painter would be recruiting right now. But you got to give credit, I guess, to Indiana on that because they spotted him first. Brian Walsh has been the guy there that's been recruiting him pretty hard. Mike Woodson, obviously, it's a whole lot different when the head coach is starting to recruit you. And that's what Mike Woodson's doing. And Mike Woodson realizes that he can be a guy that can come in. Again, don't know if he plays right away, probably have some minutes here and there or whatever, but just depending on what the roster looks like in a lot of ways. But, man, he's a program guy. He's a guy that you can bring in, and he's just a guy that's going to build on and just get better and better. And like you've seen this spring, but he had a really, really good high school season, really good junior season, led Greenfield Central to I think it was like 34 wins or something like that. And only one loss. And unfortunately that loss came in the state playoffs. Fought through a lot of injuries. He's just now getting a lot more healthier with his game. And obviously that's translated on the floor, but Braylon Mullins is a guy I've been watching for a long time. The development of his game has just been fun to watch. Comes from a great family. Shout out Josh. His dad, he's a great guy and everything. So, Brayden Mullins he's going to be. I would be shocked when the next rankings come out for 24/7 Sports or Rivals or whatever. I would not be shocked to see him in the top 40 at least. He's that good. So it's going to be fun to see what other schools hop in with him right now.
Tennessee just hopped in within the last hour.
Wow. So there you go. You got Tennessee right there. No one's having a better spring than Braylon Mullins. No one's having a better spring than him. And what's awesome is he's an in-state player. It's really, really cool to see. So if Indiana can somehow get both Braylon Mullins and Trent Sisley, for that 25 class, that is that's a pretty good start when you're trying to build, for the program for the future.
Yeah. I mean, Braylon Mullins, we talked about him. We've talked a ton about Braylon Mullins, talked about Trent Sisley, his AU teammate, a ton. Indiana guys Woodson has been after since, I guess, the beginning of his tenure as head coach. Those are guys he's targeted. And now you see Mullins picking up these major offers across the country from the biggest programs, and it's really good to see for him.
Yeah, absolutely. So the 25 class, pretty stacked class nationally, not even in the state as well. And you'll include Jaylen Harrelson in there as well, even though he's, with a private school and everything now. But the 25 class, my gut feeling, that's going to be the class that Indiana really takes off. That's going to be the class. And if Mike Woodson really wants to take back the state of recruiting, Matt Painter's been that guy right there. He's been the king of in-state recruiting over the past few years. Indiana's just really struggled. You've had Archie Miller, Tom Crean. Even though Archie Miller did a pretty solid job the last few years, it's been all Matt Painter. So if Mike Woodson wants to take back the state, landing guys like Braylon Mullins, Trent Sisley, and Jalen Harelson, those guys, that's how you do it right there. So it'll be interesting to see. I don't know what Braylon's what his timeline is right now. I think from talking to his dad and him a little bit, I think he probably wants to have something set in stone by his senior year, as most kids kind of want to as well. So just to keep an eye on that. But honestly, just from a fan perspective, it's going to be fun to see what other offers come Braylon Mullins way.
Yeah, and I'm sure we will have all the coverage of his offers, his recruitment, Sisley's recruitment, Cayen Anthony, Jaylen Harrelson, pretty much every guy we mentioned that Indiana has ties to. HoosierIllustrated.com has you covered for their recruitment, where they're going, when they're coming to Indiana for visits, who Indiana is offering. I mean, just basketball, football, we have it all on HoosierIllustrated.com.
Yes, we do. And obviously we got a whole lot of highlights that I took over the weekend at EYBL. So go watch those Indiana targets. So we'll have a lot more stories, a lot more recruiting stuff happening, with the transfer portal. It's kind of dead for Indiana. We're going to see what they do with that final scholarship, not getting a whole lot of positive vibes there, I guess, when it comes to recruiting or filling that final scholarship. So it's going to be high school right now. It's going to be building for the future and bringing in guys like Mullins and Harrelson and those guys. That's what Indiana's going to be focused on now. But we'll have a ton of stuff. Always going to have updates on recruiting, even football recruiting at HoosierIllustrated.com. So go check out all of our stuff. I've got a great notebook up. Drew's got some great stories as well. So, Hoosier Illustrated is popping right now. And I promise everyone that's listening, we got guests. We're going to get guests. I've got a few. The next podcast, I don't care when it's going to be. I don't know if it's next week or the week after. We will have a guest, and that is my promise to all the fans of HoosierIllustrated.com.
Yeah, and if it's who we've been talking about, it's a very exciting guest to have. So you're gonna want to stay tuned for that. As always, for all things IU athletics, follow Indiana_FRN on Twitter, Facebook, and check out the HoosierIllustrated.com website, and make sure to subscribe on both YouTube and Spotify. Hoosier Illustrated has also partnered with Tom Brady's company Autograph to streamline our coverage so you can do what you do best. Follow IU Sports. Use the code INDIANAFR to get started today. As always, thank you for tuning in to the Talkin Bout the Hoosiers podcast. We'll be back soon.